dear. Where's your magic sword?
I, Arthur, was to carry Excalibur. That is why I'm your king.
Arthur's real enough and man enough to ride as we do in pursuit of glory.
Merlin? But this Merlin is no wizard.
He's a worthless drunkard.
I should have known better than to trust a Frenchman.
The robot is feeding off the magic of Excalibur.
But your priests deny the power of Avalon.
A dream to some.
A nightmare to others!
Hello and welcome to Hollywood Avalon with your host Mary Jones.
And Dennis Ling.
And I know you don't have any faith in my pick this month.
I believe you called this Hollywood Avalon, but is it?
Well, it's complicated. So look, we've covered films that maybe to the average viewer does not seem Arthurian. Star Wars comes to mind, yes. Eventually we'll be doing Apocalypse Now, which, to be fair, Apocalypse Now also name checks The Wasteland and Jesse Weston's From Ritual to Romance, so like Coppola knows what he's doing.
All
right. This does not, on its surface, the film we're going to watch, look like an Arthurian film.
No.
But I watched the first 10-15 minutes and I went, oh no, this is exactly an Arthurian film.
Really?
Yes. So we're watching 28...
Hellboy? You just want to watch a good movie after that one.
You got that right. Oh my God. Yeah, I know. There's like a whole list of terrible films that we could watch that are all set in the post-Roman Britain of the 5th century. That's all about like, the Romans are withdrawing, or it's the legions have left, or whatever. You know, it's that kind of time period of chaos in which King Arthur arises to, unite the island.
From the Russian steppes.
Yeah, I know. I'm still angry about that movie, literally called King Arthur. And there are a number of films that are, I guess, I don't know if they're all kind of trying to, draft off of the wind that they thought would be under the Guy Ritchie King Arthur film, which there wasn't, unfortunately, because it actually was kind of a fun movie. I wish he'd gotten to make his entire series. No.
The Marvel universe of the Round Table.
Yeah, look, I know, but other than the bad CGI, I kind of enjoyed that movie.
Yeah.
So, we're talking about what they call, what is now in a, academic circles called sub-Roman Britain, right? And the Arthur story does arise from the power vacuum that comes from when the Roman Empire left Britannia. And then the local kings said, oh man, what do we do? I think we have to hire a bunch of mercenaries. In come the Saxons. Okay? So it's this time of anarchy, right? There's nobody in charge. It's not a united island. It wasn't united under the Romans, but there was a large province of Britannia, right? And when the Romans withdrew, that threw everything into chaos. Okay. So the movie we're going to watch is 28 years later. And I know people are thinking, what in the world does that have to do with King Arthur? Here's the thing. I watched, as I said, the first 10-15 minutes. And I've seen the other two films. They are very good, not zombie movies, because it's not they're not zombies. They're not revenants like in Night of the Living Dead, right? They are infected with a virus. And the virus turns them crazy and into insane cannibals, right?
See, to me, zombies has always been a comment on our shiftless children. The teenagers, they don't care about anything anymore. I had to work my way up and blah, blah, blah. And then I feel that the 28 Days Later zombies is more a comment on just the rage in rural areas and stuff about being left behind and all that.
Dennis, you're on the right track.
Yeah.
It is very much about the rage of a post-Empire Britain, right? That's what those movies are really about.
Yeah.
Britain after the Empire is gone, and now they don't even have Queen Elizabeth anymore, right?
Yeah, and they don't have people like Ray Davies.
No.
Looking back on the old days, oh, I miss tea sets.
So, yeah, look, The 1-2 punch of the Village Green Preservation Society and Arthur, or the Decline and Fall of the British Empire, are maybe two of my favorite records ever.
Yeah.
Right? They're very high up there, and they're very much a commentary on that sort of thing, like the passage of the rural England of the 19th century into the 20th century, and the British Empire, and then kind of the fall of the British Empire. I mean, it's literally called that in the second one, as a consequence of the Second World War. Think back to the Long Good Friday. Okay, the Long Good Friday is also about Britain and its uncomfortable position of we are after the Empire, right? And it's the beginning of the Thatcher era, and so they think they're going to have this rebirth, and of course the film does not end that way. And also, the fact that Northern Ireland is an albatross around the neck of the British Isles, right? Which shouldn't even be called the British Isles, right? Like I have to change my own schooling and think of a lot of people don't want it to be called that for a very good reason. 28 years later is about, I think, I haven't watched the whole thing yet. I've only watched, like I said, the first 15 minutes. You brought up the Rage of the Rural, right?
Yeah.
Okay. This film is definitely about Brexit, right? Because what happens in this movie, we find out is, so you had the rage virus, and according to the opening of this film, the rage virus has thankfully been quarantined only to the island of Britain. Yes. Nice. Europe has cut itself off from Britain so that nobody gets infected. And there are a small group of uninfected people who live on the Isle of, I guess, Lindisfarne.
Mm-hmm.
Lindisfarne is a holy island. Like literally, this is a famous monastery. I'm trying to think of who settled it, but it was in the 7th century. And it's off this coast of Northumbria. Okay.
Merlin?
No, this is after Merlin. But hold on. So the premise of this film, from what I saw from the opening, is the rage virus is contained to the island of Britain, and you have a small group of uninfected people who live off that island, but they also don't have any contact really with Europe, right? So the rest of the world is not infected, just Britain. And they have the rage virus where they all just eat each other.
Yeah.
This is Brexit, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But here's why I thought, let's cover this film. Because these people live in this almost like 19th century peasants on this island, which used to be a monastery, right? A famous monastery raided by Vikings. Wonderful Anglo-Saxon art was made there, whatever. And now it's just the survivors, the last, uninfected Englishmen. Okay. What they do is, sort of as their coming of age story is, when you get to a certain age, you are part of this hunting band who then go over to Britain and hunt the infected population, right? And I don't know if the idea is that eventually we'll kill them off and get to come and reclaim our island, but this is sort of your proving ground is you go over this causeway to the island and you hunt these people with a bow and arrow. Okay. In the opening of this film, the first 10 minutes or so, when they're talking about this and when they're setting the world, the film, very clever, it has all of these sort of montages or just scenes interjected of medieval knights going on crusade, or medieval knights fighting, strange hordes of people, whatever. And it looks like old footage of films. I didn't look up whether these are actual old films that they're intersplicing in, but it has that idea of this is a Britain that has cut itself off from Europe or been cut off from Europe.
Yeah.
And this is a replay, in a way, of the start of the Dark Ages.
Or the end of Threads.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is that. Look, the withdrawal of the Roman Empire from Britain, it's this idea that we were part of this empire. The empire withdrew, and we were thrown into anarchy.
It was part of our founder's psyche.
It was. Yeah, in the United States, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, Go on.
Well, no, like they worship Cincinnatus.
Yeah, yeah. The Roman Empire is sort of, that is a template in the Anglo consciousness for what a civilization is supposed to be.
Yeah,
Why?
These landed dudes. You
Yeah.
know, like, a few generations in some cases, still, they're like, oh, man, it was so good when the Romans were in charge.
And no, it wasn't. On the other hand, there is a part of me that thinks of that scene from The Life of Brian, like, what have the Romans ever done for us? Well, agriculture, viniculture,
Roads.
running water, the aqueducts. It's okay. It wasn't all bad, right? So, yes, when the Romans left, you think about the city of Bath, okay? Yeah. Here is this city, and that's well into the Isle of Britain, right? And you have this city that was built, and they have a spa. Like, this is where we get the term bath from.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, this is it. This is the idea of imagine Atlantic City if it didn't suck, right? And I like Atlantic City, but it sucks, right? Yeah. It's really run down. Okay, so imagine you have this civilization, and they come, and they're there for a couple hundred years. Several hundred years. And then because of their own internal problems, they withdraw from your island and say, we're out of here. And now you have no defenses against anyone else.
But you can keep the TV that we left.
Pretty much. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, the withdrawal of the Roman Empire from Britain and the anarchy that ensued afterwards is a huge part of the culture, right? Because this is the start of the end of Britain as a Celtic realm entirely, and the introduction of the Saxons, right? And that they come in and they completely change the culture for a big portion of the island. And that's how you end up with, instead, an identity of the Welsh and Cornwall and what they called the Old North, the Hen Aglaith. Aglaith? Yeah. It means the Old North, which is like Cumbria and places like that. And that's not even getting into Scotland, which is its own thing, right? So out of that chaos rises the story of King Arthur, right? What is the importance of Arthur in the Dark Ages? And we call it the Dark Ages because, on the one hand, for Britain it really was, because all of a sudden you don't have this central organizing society, a state, right? The state withdraws, and now you're just left with petty kingdoms. But also, you have this idea of, I completely lost where my sentence was, so that's fine. Yeah. You get where I'm going with this, right? So Arthur arises because now there's no central authority. We need to have a central authority. And that's the story of Arthur, is that he unites the kingdom into a central authority because the Saxons are invading and they want to take over the island. Obviously, the Saxons win because what language are we speaking, Dennis? It ain't Welsh.
It's not?
No. It is the mongrel language of English. But Arthur exists as this symbol of resistance against invasion.
So when did Geoffrey write about this stuff?
12th century.
Okay.
Like 1136, I think, is when he finished his History of the Kings of Britain.
So was he a Norman, or what is he?
Well, he was probably Norman-ish, but with Brittonic ancestry, probably from Brittany. Right? And so then you're getting into, like, medieval identities are very complicated, right? Because they don't cleanly map onto modern identities. Geoffrey was Norman, but he was of Breton ancestry, but then the Normans would often use the idea of Breton ancestry as legitimizing their own conquest of the island, even though a lot of the Normans were actually, they had been Vikings like 300 years earlier.
Yeah.
So they weren't actually Britons either, right? But they liked to use the fact that Normandy is right next to Brittany, and hey, aren't we kind of the same guys? To which, if you're a Breton, you're thinking, well, no, you don't speak the same language, and you're Vikings. What are you talking about? But Geoffrey was probably of Breton ancestry, but he lived under a Norman king, and he was probably an Anglo-Norman, right? But now you're getting into kind of the complicated thing of like, oh, Arthur is the symbol of the Welsh. Yes, definitely, but also of the Bretons, because of Geoffrey, and then you're getting into, well, the Normans like to use the story of Arthur and the fact that Normandy is right next to Brittany as just to legitimize their own rule. And hey, they're not Saxons, so it's not like they're the people who invaded and overthrew the kingdom after Arthur died, right? You're getting into like that whole complicated idea of what is a legitimate kingdom, which to modern sensibilities is nuts. I mean, the idea that there's no such thing as a legitimate kingdom, right, as far as I'm concerned. But
well, if you got a round table, then it's legitimate.
Sure. But you see where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what does this have to do with 28 years later, right?
Zombies.
Well, from what I got of this movie is it's a commentary on that Britain is descending into the same type of anarchy as when the Romans left, Britannia, which was the name of the colony. The UK voted to leave the European Union. This was a dumb idea. Everybody admits this is a dumb idea now, except for, well, there's a thing called the Reform Party. Unfortunately. Do you know about the Reform Party?
No.
Do you remember UKIP?
Yeah.
Okay. The Reform Party is basically just UKIP. Oh. For those who don't know, yeah.
I'm sorry.
UKIP is the UK Independence Party, which of course was the kind of the driving force behind Brexit. And it was the idea that if we withdraw from the EU and, just cut ourselves off entirely, then we don't have to have any of their rules, telling us how to, do our banking and whatever, and, the Human Rights Watch and everything else. And we can kind of do things on our own, and we will make Britain great again.
And we can finally eat brains.
Yeah, basically. Yes. Yes, you can finally eat all of the cow brains you want, you country, covered in mad cow disease. That's another thing that is part of the whole kind of origins of 28 Days Later, right? Is the mad cow disease problem of the 90s that kind of, I mean, come on, man. So yeah, I mean, you have, unfortunately, the Labour Party is useless, although they're in power, but they're like the Democrats, but somehow even worse, right? The Tories are completely in shambles because they, as soon as they took over in 2015, I think it was, maybe it was 2010. I'm trying to think. Maybe it was 2010. I'm trying to think of when David Cameron took over. Probably something like that. Anyway, they've been feckless for the entire time, and they finally fell apart. They went through 3 prime ministers in a year. The year the Queen died. Liz Truss lasted 28 days. There was a head of lettuce that didn't last as long as her. She came up with this insane economic plan that basically crashed the economy. Britain still hasn't entirely recovered, I don't think. It's bad. It's really bad. Well, when they left the EU, and now all of a sudden they can't just go to Europe the way they went to, and now you have what had been a very nice, kind of quiet, because everybody was part of the EU, and the thing is, the UK was able to retain their currency. It's not like they signed on to everything, but they had the free movement of people and everything, and so the whole thing with Northern Ireland wasn't really much of a thing because it kind of didn't matter. Now all of a sudden it matters again. You don't have the free movement of people. You don't have the same sort of I don't know, strictures or guides happening with regards to immigration and whatnot. Now you have the rise of these insane right-wing gangs in the UK burning down hostels, where immigrants are, staying and stuff. I mean, it's basically like here, right? There is a virus in the Anglo culture. There is a virus in the Anglo culture. And I'm talking about the United States. I'm talking about the United Kingdom. I'm talking about Australia. Australia are the ones who I think came up with the whole idea of we're going to deport you to a third country. We don't talk a lot about Australian racism, but it's very real and it's very dangerous. It's just that it happens all the way on the other side of the world, so we don't talk about it. But Australia is worse than us in some ways. Although we, well, I don't know. We're pre-Trump. Yeah.
We can hold our own. Come on.
Yeah. So why do I want to watch this movie?
Because it's like Rome leaving England, and now they're fighting the zombies.
Yeah. We are now in a world where the old world is dying and the new world struggles to be born. We're in the time of monsters, and those monsters are eating people in Leeds.
Do you know much else about the movie, or
not really?
Just the opening.
I know that Ray Fiennes is in it.
Oh,
so
like
that's
Ray
good.
Fiennes.
Yeah, I like him. Yeah. Other than that, I know the opening. The opening, you're gonna like this. Reminded me a lot of the ending of Threads.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what it sounded like.
Oh, okay, yeah, you know about that?
Yeah,
with them watching Teletubbies? Okay, so yeah, it's very much like the ending of Threads. And of course, if you haven't, go back and listen to our episode on Threads, which is kind of like, same territory,
The funny thing about Threads is that, like, almost all promotional material of that movie is like the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And like, it's there's this long setup, and then like the whole second half of the movie is just this depressing slog.
To be fair, it's meant to explain to people this is why this would be bad.
Oh, come on. It's not focusing on the upsides.
This isn't like Mad Max. Mad Max, you got to admit, at least makes the end of the world feel fun.
Yeah. If you have a car.
If you have a car. Again, Australia, I don't know. Australia is like the United States, but somehow crazier. Which is saying something.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Australia someday, but that's a different thing. All right.
So, I don't, like...
Do you think this is a crazy choice?
No, I get it. But, like, I was wondering, like, I feel like one thing about King Arthur is that a lot of times it doesn't focus on the enemies.
Yeah.
Except for, like, Mordred and Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, they are there. There's faceless hordes, and sometimes they have crossbows for some reason.
But you don't get a lot about Hengist and Horsa and the Saxons. Weirdly enough, that movie that I hate, called King Arthur, does focus on them. It still sucks, though. Yeah, I think there's a reason they don't focus that much on it, even though it's a huge part of things like the History of the Kings of Britain or Historia Britonum or, the early parts of Mallory gets into some of that. I think the reason they don't linger on those stories very much is because those are the ancestors of the English. And who's writing the stories? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be like, I don't know, in the, here they are there, but you don't get a whole lot of sweeping epics about Crazy Horse or Geronimo. There should be.
Yeah.
That should be like our national epic, except that we're the bad guys.
Yeah.
Think of King Arthur.
That's what Star Wars is.
Well, yeah, kinda.
Yeah.
But think of King Arthur as Geronimo, right?
So does, say, Ray Fiennes seem like a Arthur figure?
Oh, I don't know. He hasn't shown up in the movie yet. Like I said, I watched the first 10 minutes. There was so much medieval imagery, like literally, guys in chainmail and bows and arrows and stuff. That I was like, no, I gotta cover this. There were so many things kind of going on that I'm just like, yeah, this is interesting. This is about something.
Okay.
It looked like a surprisingly interesting and densely layered film. I shouldn't say surprisingly, except that it was written by Alex Garland, and I'm of two minds about that Civil War movie. I mean, I really am. There's some things I really hate about it, but there's some things that I really like about it, especially the ending. And we'll leave it at that. So, shall we go watch? Unless you got anything else.
Yeah.
Shall we go watch 28 Years Later?
Sure.